साथ मेरे दाएं जानिब तशरीफ़ फरमाएं डॉक्टर उस्मान चौहान। आप एडवाइज़र हैं ऑन इकोनॉमिक्स एट सेंटर फॉर एरोस्पेस एंड सिक्योरिटी स्टडीज़। मोरओवर यू आर प्रेसिडेंट ऑफ द इंटरनेशनल एसोसिएशन ऑफ हाइपर पोलीग्लोट्स। मुझे नहीं मालूम था कि इससे क्या मुराद है, फिर मैंने जब इसको लुगत में चेक किया तो मालूम हुआ कि वो शख्स जो कई ज़ुबानों पे महारत रखता हो। उस्मान जो है उन्होंने भी मुझे बताया कि वो 12 ज़ुबानें जानते हैं एंड आई एम वेरी इम्प्रेस्ड बाय।
एंड विद दिस पर्सपेक्टिव पाकिस्तान के जो रीजन में अब पाकिस्तान, हमारे वज़ीर आज़म साहब भी अभी गए हुए हैं 4 ममालिक के तूफ़ानी दौरा जिसे कहना चाहिए, और उसका बड़ा मकसद जो है वो तुर्किया, अज़रबैजान, ताजिकिस्तान, ईरान, उनके साथ इक़्तिसादी ताल्लुकात बहाल करने हैं। एक तो खैर वो जंग में साथ रहे हैं एज अ जेस्चर ऑफ थैंक्स और जेस्चर ऑफ रिस्पेक्ट, दैट्स देयर, वी नो इट। मगर असल पर्पज़ ये है कि उनसे तिजारती ताल्लुकात मजबूत किए जाएं, पहले से भी हैं। और इसी तरह पाकिस्तान की ये भी ख्वाहिश है कि जो पाकिस्तान का ट्रेड डेफिसिट है, ह्यूज है, उसको किसी तरह एड्रेस किया जाए और पाकिस्तान को जो इंटरनेशनल डिपेंडेंसी है या इकोनॉमिक डिपेंडेंसी है IMF, और हमें पता है कि इस दफ़ा IMF इन अ वे इज़ डिक्टेटिंग द कंटूर्स ऑफ आवर बजट, वी नो इट, यू नो इट बेटर। सो अंडर द सर्कमस्टांसेस how Pakistan is going to take an advantage of its economic potential, quote unquote कह रहा हूँ, or possibility to move ahead and introduce itself as a economically progressing country which is keen in building its economic and trade relationship with other countries in post-war perspective. Over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Saab. Assalamu alaikum to the audience. I have really enjoyed coming to the Black Hole many times. My favorite time was when Jacques Collot was here. And I've learned a lot here, so I feel in a sense part of the community. It's just my privilege to be on this side today. Jo aapka sawal hai about international trade and integration, it applies to Pakistan. Aapne bilkul durust farmaya that no country is an island. But in order for us to understand what Pakistan's economic perspective is and will be over the years, we have to take a little bit of a step back. You have covered economics here. I've watched it on YouTube if I haven't been here in person. And it's a boring subject, so I'm not going to bore you with it. But fundamentally, there is a mismatch between what we want to do, what we are capable of doing, but what we are actually doing. This is a form of theoretically structural violence, that you are unable to attain the maximum that you can be as a society. The way that our systems have been designed as they govern the economic sphere, they are very much the legacy of the British government. You are still subjects of a British-like government. The way it is managed, you are not free to take on enterprise. You're not free to do things. That economic freedom doesn't exist. And so ultimately, everything is managed in a way short-term to short-term. That's the long and short of it. There's really no. So you have to imagine a new system. That is why the conversations I have with ordinary Pakistanis are more imaginative than perhaps those who have the levers of power, because they know something ain't right. And that's the long and short of it. But how does Pahalgam or this India-Pakistan war, how does this and skirmish and conflict, आप इसको जो कह ले, मैं तो war कहूँगा because मैं 1 घंटा भी नहीं सोया हूँगा पिछले 3 हफ्तों में. Because as you are aware, I actually served the Pakistan Air Force as a civilian, in a civilian capacity. I'm one of the founding directors of the think tank of the Pakistan Air Force, which was created in 2018. उसकी संग बुनियाद डाली गई officially in 2019. तो मैं उस तनाज़ुर में आपको थोड़ी सी चीज़ें पेश करना चाहूँगा, which other economists can't. It's very different, the experience I've had. As a civilian, working with the Air Force, there's some things I want to share with you that you'll feel nice, because you've been hearing from the media all this stuff, या memes देख रहे हैं, या Twitter, मेरा भी एक meme है, some of you might have seen that, बड़ा शुगली किस्म का. But to understand how awesome the Air Force is, you have to engage with them. I've had that privilege. And that will give you an idea of what is required for the economy at large, going back to your question. The first thing that is important to understand about the Air Force is that they don't distinguish between military and civilian. वो फासला उन्होंने नहीं बनाया हुआ. They have always treated me as part of the family. I have no antecedents in the Air Force. I'm not a pilot. I'm not an engineer. But I've never felt that distance. I feel one of them. That mindset of inclusiveness is already an amazing thing. The second thing that we saw in this conflict particularly, but we also saw it in 2019, and we also saw it in previous wars, we even saw it in 1971, is that the Air Force plans in advance, way in advance, and it works very, very hard to make sure that it adjusts according to the realities. ये कबल अज़ वक्त इतना सोचते हैं कि जब वक्त आता है मुखासमत को ज़हूर पज़ीर करने का, then they operate like a machine. There is no time to think of anything. That's why they are so perfect at what they do. And so I got to learn from these people how anticipation in advance, to really think in advance about what is happening, can be amazing. ये कैसे हो सकता है कि JF-17 was the hero of the last conflict and J-10C is the hero of this conflict? J-10C wasn't even around, but our air chief had planned these things, then it was brought down, then they were ready. Our pilots are training in Chengdu. And then the third thing, the integration of all things. Every cog in the machine of the Air Force makes sense. आपने इसमें देखा, it was not just manned aircraft. There was electronic warfare, there was cyber warfare, there was air defense, there were manned things, there were unmanned things. All of these things work in perfect synchronicity. India was not ready for what was coming for it. And their view of Pakistan is jaundiced by ideology, and it is jaundiced by the idea that they have already emerged, but they haven't. That's where the economy part, I will tell you about what I did during this conflict. They thought that they were already ready to take on the world. China se मुकाबला करेंगे. पाकिस्तान को छोड़ो, पाकिस्तान जो छोटी चीज़ है नहीं, पाकिस्तान भी बड़ी शय है. It's quite a big deal. And the Air Force proved that through a perfect systems integration. Now, if you have these kinds of things, the Air Force also wanted an institution that can advise it on things with experience. यानी कि लोग retire हो जाते हैं काफ़ी जल्दी Air Force में, but they're still smart, still capable. Many of my colleagues are like that. They're retired 2 stars or 3 stars or 1 stars. And then there were some civilians too, like me. And when Pulwama hadn't yet happened, there was a study from CASS, Center for Aerospace and Security Studies, which said कि कुछ होने लगा है. अभी इंतखाबात होंगे और इनको पंगा ले लेना. और लिया, but we were ready. That kind of thing. The work on the FATF, आपको याद है FATF की कितनी drama चल रहा था? That work originated from my office as an economist. And I said, this is how you deal with it. दो तरीके. You actually got to fix your system. जो आपका बुनियादी सवाल है about integration and trade. You actually got to fix your systems, but at the same time, माँ बहन कर दो FATF की. इसको नंगा करो on international fora. You saw our Prime Minister, our Foreign Minister, and everybody बेनकाब किया इसको to show the hypocrisy. That's why right now India is only thinking about FATF, but it can't use it again. How is that done to actually fix things and how to attack? That was done at CASS. It's a very small institution, but like this, we have kept working on things throughout. How you do air power, air doctrine, all of these things, plus civilian foreign policy, plus economy stuff. Getting all your minds together, so at least some of the bright minds together, and having open technical discussions is actually, sir, आपको बुनियादी जो मंशा शोर है मेरी बात का वो ये है, you have to extrapolate this to the national level. What you have here at Black Hole is another good microcosm of having open and technical debates. You get experts to come talk to you. We need this as a society to prepare for the challenges ahead. And the challenges are not just Modi. Modi ji is a very small thing in the course of history. But climate change, our rivers, our mountains, all of this stuff, we have to think about the big stuff. And we have to do that as a society. If you read CASS's research, and by the way, our website is not active because it was the victim of a cyber attack. This kind of thing is happening, right? The war is not over yet in the long scheme of things. But our research is all there in the public domain for you to read. Urdu mein bhi hai, Angrezi mein bhi hai. All of us can share ideas and learn and apply the models of meritocratic technical excellence as embodied by the Air Force into society at large. That's why India made a mistake picking the air domain to fight us, because that's the one we're really good at. They have been using things like IMF instead as shadow warfare or propaganda, and that was working. But once they have lost in a major domain like the air, then suddenly all narratives collapse. The other guests here will tell you now how it can be that we can excel in others for economics. जो आपको बुनियादी सवाल है, there is a colonial structure of government that still exists in Pakistan. You must dismantle this and build a new model which takes in the matching of capital and talent. That's it. The capital exists in Pakistan. आपकी informal economy ज़्यादा बड़ी है आपकी formal economy से. आपका इतना पैसा बाहर है, आपके overseas Pakistanis में जहानत भी है, दयानत भी है, और ये काफ़ी सारे, they have like maybe $200 billion in assets. The Pakistanis living outside Pakistan. You match this with the talent we have here, and everything will be solved. And you don't need one particular system. It doesn't have to be free market capitalism. You just need a matching principle for your talent and your capital. That's it.
प्रोपेगेंडा मशीनरी थी, उस मशीनरी को खुद ही एक्सपोज कर दिया है. आगे बढ़ते हैं. अरुंधति राय सेज दैट अर्लियर weapons were manufactured to wage a war or fight a war. Now wars are manufactured to sell weapons. अब मैं एक तो मैडम ने जो बात की है, मैं चाहूँगा उसके टेक्निकल पर्सपेक्टिव पर आप रोशनी डालें. दिस इज़ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट एंड प्रिटी रेलेवेंट. आई सपोज इट मस्ट बी क्लोज टू योर हार्ट एंड माइंड. ये जो इंटरनेशनल वॉरफेयर और डिफेंस सर्कल्स में डिबेट हो रही है कि इट्स बेसिकली इट हैज़ ब्रॉट अस टू अ पॉइंट where we need to, or the Western intelligentsia, IR, needs to rethink that it was a combat between high-end Western technology and high-end Chinese technology. Keeping in mind or alluding to the so-called, I do not believe anything at all, but it's popular, clash of Huntington's clash of civilization, or Sino-Tibetan civilizations and let's say Western civilization. उसको थोड़ा सा अनपैक करें टेक्निकल पर्सपेक्टिव ने. मैडम ने कुछ पहलुओं पर रोशनी डाली है. दिस इज़ वन थिंग. एंड सेकेंड इज़ अ relatively different, but I personally think it's very important question. Ahsan Iqbal has just mentioned, which was pretty likely and we were expecting, that we are going to increase military budget, military spending. रियलिस्ट पर्सपेक्टिव में जैसा कि राशिद साहब फरमा रहे थे, फाइन, आई हैव नो रिजर्वेशंस, आई मे नॉट हैव रिजर्वेशंस गिवन द बेलिजरेंट एटीट्यूड ऑफ इंडिया, मोदी इन पर्टिकुलर. अर्लियर दे सेड इट्स एन एग्रीमेंट, नॉट अ सीज फायर. देन दे सेड इट्स अ पॉज, नॉट अ सीज फायर. एंड नाउ दे आर सेइंग वी विल कम बैक वेल प्रिपेयर्ड, वेट फॉर अस. दे वांट टू एस्टेब्लिश अ न्यू नॉर्मल. बट वन वे आर द अदर, पीपल हियर, पीपल देयर. 60% of the Indian citizens hardly earn 100 rupees, 100 Indian rupees a day. And 37 to 40% of the people of Pakistan hardly meet the two ends, are living below poverty line. So the relationship between social development, in which we know health, education, sewerage, sanitation, human development or social development is significant, very important. So how the two are going to affect each other? These two questions are very important. I would like to shed light on it so that we can understand and how can we strike a balance ke chale, let's say, speaking in military terms, maintaining minimum deterrence could be important, but obviously social development is equally important. So being an economist, please elaborate on it.
डॉक्टर साहब, जिस तरह ईरान ने इसराइल पे मिसाइल कई सारे गिराए, इस तरह आपने मेरे ऊपर मिसाइल गिराए ऑफ सब्सटेंस. दे आर क्वेश्चंस ऑफ सब्सटेंस एंड दे ऑल मस्ट बी एड्रेस्ड. बट मैं इस तरह, जिस तरह आयरन डोम है कि
you can manage them. You know.
Let's begin with the idea of Chinese technology versus Western technology, because this is something of great interest to us and the trajectory of humanity over this century. There is something that is now being called the deep-seek moment. Perhaps you have all heard of this, कि deep-seek का ज़माना आ गया है. बुनियादी तौर पे जब मैं तो छोटा था तो चाइनीज़ चीज़ 2 नंबर चीज़ होती थी, टेमू चीज़. दर हकीकत अब जो है हर शोबे में और हर काम के शोबे में चीन आगे निकल गया है. बराबरी की सतह नहीं बल्कि आगे निकल चुका है. उन्होंने सरमाया जिन चीज़ों में किया है वो काम की चीज़ें हैं, तो इसलिए उनके नतायज अब सामने नज़र आ रहे हैं. मैं ख़ुद चाइना में रहा था 2013 में वो दौर और था और चाइना अब जो है it is so much further ahead, but even then I could see the brimming, the bubbling of a new society, बड़ी ज़बरदस्त. And I was at Tsinghua University, उनकी बेहतरीन university थी, doing my economics work, और वो भी 3 साल Chinese पढ़ने के बाद. So I was seeing the best. And this is pre-CPEC. So for them, it was the first experience of a Pakistani. मैंने कहा तुम लोग पाकिस्तान जाओगे, लग पता जाएगा. It is a different world. They have focused on important things. EV batteries. कि जी इलेक्ट्रिक व्हीकल बैटरी सस्टेनेबल हमने एम्पावर अगर अपनी कौम को करना है, हमने वो तकवीयत अगर देनी है, तो उसके लिए अगर हर बंदे के पास गाड़ी है तो वो कंबस्टन इंजन नहीं हो सकता. It will destroy the environment. So they worked on EV. They worked on solar. And now Pakistan is importing so much. रातों रात Pakistan is one of the leading solar countries in the world. आपकी एनर्जी में वो तवाज़ुन ला रहा है. At least आपके बिल में. एनर्जी ग्रिड की अलग बात है. They have focused on AI. और जो जहाँ सैम ऑल्टमन कहता है मुझे जी $100 बिलियन चाहिए, वहाँ पे 10 बिलियन में जो है ये गराज बैंड ने मिलके कर दिया है. Even better than that. मतलब it has legitimate advantages over ChatGPT or over OpenAI. Legitimate advantages, not just knuckle. And finally, अब ये J10C is an example of that. Perhaps you guys know that there are generations of aircraft. 4th generation, 4.5, 5, 6. अच्छा, the first generation is literally वो जो cartoon propeller होता है ना, वो पुराना वाला. But you come down to the 3rd generation F-16. अब F-16 के ऊपर there were some limitations, hudud huyud थी of how we could use it. It's given by America. JF-17 is 4th generation, JF meaning joint fighter. उसमें पाकिस्तान का भी उतना हाथ है, उतनी शमूलियत जितनी चाइना की. और उसके नताइज आप देखते हैं because it is a multi-role aircraft. 4.5 में this was the test, the deep seek moment was, जिस तरह Ambassador साहिबा कह रही हैं, that it was an actual competition, actual demonstration. So Chengdu aircraft shot up in share price by 20% immediately. जो French Dassault था वो आहिस्ता आहिस्ता हो रहा था because the investors thought कि maybe countries are not going to shift orders. तो जो business है, the earnings are priced into the stock, so maybe this won't fall. लेकिन वो भी अब गिरने शुरू हो गया because countries are switching orders. जैसे Ambassador साहिबा कह रही थी, Egypt, Indonesia, ये तो first है. Other countries that are also interested will now switch. So the military industrial complex has a huge power. So the deep seek moment is applying to air power. और उससे अब आपको नजर आ रहा है कि the military industrial complex has entered a new dimension. Over the past 30 years, you are witness to this. The wars have been fought very asymmetrically. US versus Iraq, US versus Afghanistan, Israel versus Palestine, Russia versus Ukraine. Russia has the nukes. Now there was a little bit more symmetry, 5-1, but 5-1 we can handle. India, Pakistan. And we have brought them down to that level. But the military industrial complex is looking at this with thirst. Aapne zabardast quote diya, sir, of Arundhati Roy, that now the wars are manufactured for the weapons, not the weapons manufactured for the wars. This is a huge industry. And as Madam Ambassador said, it is the only thing America really manufactures now. Everything else is from China. ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा थोड़ा बहुत इंडिया में एप्पल आने लगा था, ट्रंप ने कहा नो थैंक यू, ये भी हटा लो यहाँ से. So the attitudes towards manufacturing, which is the backbone of an economy, matter. It also matters for us कि हम अब क्या manufacture करें. We have become, over the last 50 years, a society of traders rather than a society of producers. I have read the biographies, ये जो diaries वगैरह लिखते थे, आप बीतियाँ लिखते थे, West पाकिस्तान में, कराची में, in the 60s, of business people. This is available. और जो वो बताते हैं कि कराची was such a go place और business start करना, वो अब मैं यहाँ नहीं देखता. I don't see that कि अब मैं business start करूँगा ये वो. We need to have that same manufacturing oriented mindset here. There is room. क्योंकि सर अब ये माशी तहफ़्फ़ुज़ पसंदी का ज़माना है. और तहफ़्फ़ुज़ पसंदी में जो है, everybody is looking out for their own interests. The reality of the last 40 years of globalization is that very few people gained at the end of it. Now they want to spread the gains out a little bit more evenly, even if it is inefficient. It is, but it can be more equitable. Equity and efficiency are often conflicting values, but we need a little bit more equity. We cannot just have this 1% of capitalists extract all of the surplus from our technology, from our labor. That is what is being engineered by people like Trump. They have a legitimate perspective. Maybe a country like ours can advance in that, but you have to do more for your own people. The way the economic system globally works, Pakistan has not benefited at all from it. And that is largely our fault. We weren't able to jump in the way that Vietnam वगैरह were. But now a new system is coming, and for this system to be ready, the most important thing, which is what Doc Saab also insinuated, is the investment in education and healthcare. Ab aap ek gaur karein, last thing I will say before handing it over, is that China never invested, for example, in crypto. AI, EV batteries, ye wo, crypto mein, no thank you. Why? Ek to control, ye hamare kaaboo mein, haath mein nahi hoga. But they also didn't see it as a productive asset. Here in Pakistan, we are leaping head over heels for crypto. Most of my citations academically, most of my citations come from crypto. Ye ek dodhari talwar hai, at best. And it's not as productive as other things can be. For example, solar, for example, EV batteries. We have to be very specific about the things we work in. Jab humne China model adopt karna, China model in its philosophical sense means do things that you will do well, that are good for society. Usme Bitcoin cannot be front and center. It may be a secondary thing, sure. And I'm saying that after a decade of research on it, and now I'm working on my 10th book, Public Governance of the Blockchain. Think hard about it. This cannot liberate your economy the way they're thinking. We need to have things that are really for us. Yeah, thank you.
डॉक्टर साहब मेरे दूसरे सवाल का मुख्तसर कर लें बेशक
जी जी
military spending
yes.
versus social development. This is pretty important.
Yes,
You can be brief, but
yes, thank
please.
you. Thank you for reminding me, Dr. Saab. वो देखिए एक मिसाल तो गुजर गया, टेल अवीव को लग गया. There are four.
Handle the second one.
I am not necessarily an advocate of military spending at large. That is a guns versus butter trade-off. बहुत ही भारी हुआ है. But I do believe that the Air Force needs to get its cut, because the Air Force really, really matters for Pakistan. And there have been 4 studies at CASS that matter in this. Ek Pulwama ki aur 3 abhi. And the 4th one is about this, that we are saying that India's Air Force right now will increase its budget because it has been so badly humiliated. It will have a carte blanche from the Indian government that we need to have this, although that doesn't replace training, that doesn't replace morale, that doesn't replace technology, and the Chinese ain't going to give it. But phir bhi unko ek carte blanche jo milega, then we also, and they probably, my estimate is that 15 to 20% increase in the Air Force's budget. That is partly a larger share of overall military plus an absolute increase. So our Air Force also needs something like that. But I'm not saying that the military overall needs that. There was a very specific deployment in Pahalgam, which was the Air Force. Or uske ird-gird cheezein thi, like electronic, cyber, ye wo. So we need to invest in our Air Force for sure. Ab jo baki studies thi usme, this is an important thing. मैं मुख्तसरन ही कोशिश करूँगा, but the idea was as deterrent, studies of the damage that would be caused to India under various scenarios of combat with Pakistan. Matlab, what if you have a 3-week, 2-week, 1-week conventional war, not nuclear, because then there's no math for nuclear, go to hell. But conventional mein, what are the levels of damage that India would suffer if it went all the way to 4 weeks? Their cities are burning, our cities are burning, that kind of thing. $750 billion का नुकसान भारत को होगा. उसकी मैंने फिर एक मुफस्सल वो तकसीम करके consumption, investment, government expenditure, उसमें क्या क्या इनके damages होंगे. This roadmap, in Pulwama it was 500 billion. Now it is 700 billion because their economy has also grown. इंडिया की माइनस कोविड में जो उन्होंने गंद किया, इट हैज़ बातदरीज बढ़ती जा रही है. नुकसान भी उसी तरह. इट इज़ अ ग्लास हाउस, सो दे शुडंट बी कास्टिंग स्टोन्स ऑन पाकिस्तान. दीज आर द स्टडीज दैट आर इकोनॉमिक्स फॉर द एयर फोर्स, फॉर योर कंसिडरेशन.
अच्छा प्लीज.
European states, is it on? European states fought with one another for years, centuries, and then war exhausted, bombless, bloodless, foodless, they realized that war is not the way out. So they smartly chose perpetual peace over violent war. In the same vein, should we expect Pakistan and India peace in the coming years, centuries, millennia, or ever? Thank you.
Sir, I really appreciate your question, but human beings need to be given a real lesson. Human beings really need to be given a lesson. In World War II, Europe was so devastated that they were basically split in half, Eastern Bloc, Western Bloc. Field Marshal Zhukov said this, that the Soviet Union saved Europe from fascism and they never forgave us for it. This is the mindset कि उन्होंने हमें कभी माफ नहीं किया कि हमने उनको फस्ताहियत से बचा लिया. What is the major tragedy that you in West Pakistan have faced since 1947? You haven't actually seen suffering. We are so fortunate, Allah ka fazl hai. COVID आया, COVID हमें नहीं हुआ, हम COVID को हो गए. We are so beghairat and so resilient. Nobody dies here. We haven't actually seen suffering, at least not at the scale that Europe saw then or Palestine is seeing now. We are very fortunate. And India is also quite fortunate. Even though they had 1 million deaths, they got 1 billion people. They don't even notice it. So we are so fortunate कि हमें ढील पड़ गई. एक दिन खुदा ना खास्ता एक सबक आमोज वाक़या आएगा और सबका सॉफ्टवेयर अपडेट हो जाएगा. Or a big disaster. Doesn't have to be war.
काउंटर क्वेश्चन के लिए ना दीजिए प्लीज, फिर बात लंबी हो जाए.
A big disaster is how human beings learn. And we haven't had that. We are very fortunate in Pakistan. Did you experience anything in the last 2 weeks yourself in this war? No. Nobody did. Nobody I know. I mean, I'm with the Air Force. Yeah, we did. But normal people didn't. So we are so fortunate. And once the misfortune comes, then people's software will be updated.
फियातूर मेरा नाम है. डॉक्टर चौहान से सवाल है. जो अभी आपने बताया कि जैसे थिंक टैंक काम कर रहे होते हैं, तो जो शुरू के 48 घंटे थे, ये जो अभी वाक़या हुआ है पहलगाम के बाद का, और हमारे ऊपर जो आम पब्लिक के ऊपर ड्रोन्स और अटैक्स हो रहे थे, उस वाक़े के बाद कुछ भी नहीं हो रहा था. लेकिन जिस लम्हे नूर खान बेस पे अटैक होता है, उसके बाद एक्टिविटी शुरू होती है. क्या आम इंसान में और नूर खान बेस में फ़र्क है?
जी है. और उसकी वजह ये है कि it is a symbol. Noor Khan Base is a vast complex. My office is at the front of it, CASS. It's not important. In terms of human life, they're equivalent. But the symbol that you struck across the international border and you struck a military base, then the response for this has to be something equivalent. That's why you saw Bunyan-e-Marsus. As you know, Bunyan-e-Marsus came because one of the masajid jinko shaheed kiya gaya, this verse was standing there, that you need that erect wall. So it's all about symbols. And this is state to a state. It's not about human life per se, but how one state responds to the other. इस लिहाज से उसकी अहमियत ज़्यादा है.